Welcome to Supercool, the show tracking the rise of the low-carbon economy, a multi-trillion-dollar transformation reshaping global industries. Each week, we spotlight the climate technologies, business models, and strategies already cutting carbon, boosting profits, and improving modern life. I'm your host, Josh Dorfman. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe or follow us, or leave a review wherever you listen. And if you want to go deeper into Supercool climate solutions now scaling, check out our weekly newsletter. You can find it at getsuper.cool. Oded Omer didn't set out to become a climate tech entrepreneur. He was a professional musician trying to make it in New York City. He's always had a penchant for building things, pinball machines, sculptures, jukeboxes. He's not shy about it. He'll tell you he can build anything. He's confident, energetic, built with the fortitude and internal motor it takes to create climate tech companies where the business model has yet to be invented and the future of food and climate depends on it. In the same breath, he'll casually tell you how he built Wasteless into the global leader in eliminating food waste through AI-powered dynamic pricing. And oh, by the way, he climbed to the top of Mount Everest just a few weeks ago. Oded is made of all the right stuff that gives Israeli tech entrepreneurs their edge. Israel, of course, is truly Startup Nation, a country of just 10 million people, the same population of, say, North Carolina, has 111 tech companies publicly traded on the US NASDAQ exchange. Only 2 countries have more, the US, naturally, and China. For context, there are 28 times more tech unicorns headquartered in Israel per capita than in the US. No other nation comes even close. Oded follows in that tradition. After building a tech company that was eventually acquired by AB InBev, the global beverage giant, he went on an odyssey to figure out what came next. He traveled to the Dead Sea, no answers. Then he went to Norway, back to the glacier he'd visited as a kid. This time, the glacier was receding and no longer matched that photo he'd kept all those years. He'd already been thinking about food waste, kicking around ideas with his former co-founders. And standing on that patch of dirt, the problem snapped into focus. Food waste was the challenge to tackle. Because if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest carbon emitter in the world, behind only the US and China. It accounts for roughly 8% of global emissions. And there's waste up and down the food chain, billions and billions of pounds of it, from farms to shippers to manufacturers to grocery stores to consumers. The amounts are just staggering. And Oded knew where to start. Grocers, now consolidated, powerful, and locked in a race against expiration dates. The sell-by date was the finish line, and every day, food that didn't make it was destroyed, landfilled, turned into a heap of trash, and with it, lost profits. And the industry was acting like that was okay. The waste is within the numbers, they'd say. Or it's just the cost of doing business. But Oded, in typical form, said, that's crazy, stupid. In a low-margin business to begin with, you're throwing away profits. So he built a new model, one designed to help grocers sell more food, waste less, and protect their margins. He created the concept of dynamic discounting. Wasteless uses AI to reduce prices just enough to entice consumers to buy, hitting that sweet spot that accelerates sales as expiration dates loom, without resorting to last-minute massive markdowns that slash profits. That's Wasteless. And today, when grocery chains put out requests for proposal for a Wasteless-like solution, Oded knows he's made it. His company is the category, the Netflix, the Kleenex, and he's attained that food waste elimination status, not with posters, not with slogans, not with awareness campaigns, but with technology. Since its founding in 2016, Wasteless has expanded across the world, from Europe to South America and to the United States. In fact, Oded is back in New York City now, expanding the US business. When we spoke, he'd just come from the Guitar Center, where they know him well because he owns nearly 30 guitars. He keeps learning, keeps making music. On being a great tech entrepreneur, Oded said it's incredibly hard, but dead simple. Don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. That's how you keep going. That's how you find the answers that unlock product market fit and build a climate solution that scales. Today, Wasteless is one of the most elegant, practical solutions fixing food waste. Here's my conversation with Oded. Oded, welcome to Supercool.
Hi, Josh. Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm very excited to talk to you because we, of course, bring guests on who are doing super cool initiatives, companies, leading cities. It is not always the case that everyone has a super cool background. When I dug into your background
Yeah.
and saw the combination of music, which is great, but then combined with off-road rally racing, I just thought, man, I cannot wait to have a chance to talk to you. So welcome. We're going to talk about
Thank you.
Wasteless. Tell us about your background, the way you came to tech, and then we'll get into food waste and what Wasteless is doing today.
Okay, sure. The story actually is very short and very simple. I started as a professional musician. I got full scholarship to study in the States, and then I got advice from my clever late father who said, "Don't turn your love into profession." So I said, that's interesting, but I still jump on an airplane and I played here for a while in New York City. Then I got a phone call from my brother and he said, "What are you doing? You are subscribed to university. That's engineering. That's where you belong. And you have two options. One is you're coming back. The second option, I'm coming to get you." Now, he was stronger and older, so I took the plane back. I studied electrical engineering, first degree and second degree industrial management engineering. And it is not by coincidence. So if you go back to the history, I'm a real builder. So if you have an idea and you have hardware and software challenges and even carpentry or torching or whatever, I can literally build it from scratch. And I love doing that. I started my career spending 10 years in runway incursion prevention, which means I developed digital signal processing for radars in airports, working with Lockheed Martin, FAA, CAA, not CIA. Okay, that's the equivalent of FAA in England. And I lived all over the world, visited 48 states out of 50. And then I think that somehow my career just derailed from aviation and defense towards retail. And the story goes like this. A friend came to me and said, "Let's establish the first retail tech company in Israel." It was 2010, and I can assure you it was not the first. Okay, so we sold it as a first, but it was not the first. And we said, maybe startup journey is not difficult enough. Let's do something unique. Let's open it in the mountains in the north. And guess what? No employees, right? So shifting from aviation to retail tech, doing retail analytics, and we also made every single possible mistake that young entrepreneurs can make. Okay, 5 equal partners, incubator that took 45%, living in the north. So altogether, it was a catastrophe that we sold to minimize the damage. Seriously, we sold it after 20 months. And I came back to the center, and it was crazy because I looked for a startup entrepreneur, actually, Omer, that opened Weisberger, big data and IoT for the beer industry. And in parallel, he was looking for me. And eventually we met, coincidence. And then immediately there was, like a click. They are younger than I am. We started the whole thing, later became Weisberger. So we grew the company from 4 people actually with Gil Kaplan in a tiny room to over 120 employees working in 18 countries, sold it to AB InBev, and I was the CTO at the time. Like amazing, amazing roller coaster.
Before we get to Wasteless and what evolved, you said you came back to Israel. You were working as a professional musician. You thought your career was going one way. You got some very strong family advice and guidance, redirected you toward engineering and clearly other things where you had not just interest, but a lot of innate skills and capability. I'm curious, when you say you went up north, so Tel Aviv is considered at least one of the tech hubs, right?
Yeah,
So presumably.
it's the middle. It's the middle.
Okay. When you go up north, where do you go?
100 kilometers to the north, you have Haifa. That's another
Haifa.
major city, but we actually went to the Golan Heights. So so my kids were very young. We had and we still have beautiful life, and the kids they enjoyed it. For little kids to grow up 2 years in kibbutz. Listen, it is amazing. I can't fathom enough how amazing it is living in a kibbutz for a family. And then we went back to Tel Aviv, which is also one of the nicest and for sure the safest cities in the world.
I also lived on a kibbutz. I lived in Hadera on Gavad Chaim Ichud when I was in
Wow,
university.
Givat Chaim Ichud.
Yeah. I worked in the orange juice factory. I don't think it's still there,
Okay.
but it was quite an experience. So to go to the Golan Heights, and I've been to the Golan Heights as well, you are giving yourself, like you said, you're making it a little bit harder. You're going where there's not a tech workforce, let's just say that. But you don't shy away from challenges. You've built startups, you're able to exit, and now you start to say, food waste? Like, what's the leap to Wasteless and thinking about the challenge you're now setting out to solve?
At the time, let's say late 2016, so the sale was on the table, but it didn't happen yet. Okay, so we knew that AB InBev is probably going to acquire the company. Now, after 4 years working around the clock, like literally 18 hours a day, because Weisberger, it sounds like very romantic. You have beer facing the beach in Tel Aviv. Amazing. We worked very, very hard to build it. Omer is a legendary CEO, like really, and they are amazing. And Gil, amazing friends. And we worked really hard. And I said, okay, so now it's a short break. And then I asked myself, what's next? Because I could stay with the company and the cushy life. But I knew that we are not going to stay because we are entrepreneurs. This is what we do. We love the challenge. We believe in change. We believe in building. And then I asked myself, like, truly, what do I want to do? Where can I help? And I looked at some problems. One problem was the Dead Sea. You know that the Dead Sea is becoming dry. Okay. Actually, it was like one of the triggers. Then I looked at some energy storage, but I realized that, okay, I have zero understanding in energy storage. And then I realized that food waste is a huge problem. And then I looked at the value chain and I said, okay, 40% of the food never gets eaten. Nice claim. What can I do with that? Probably nothing. Let's look at the value chain. Farmers, they don't have money. Also, they are scattered everywhere. That's a challenge. Transportation, they don't have food waste, they have theft. This is something I don't want to touch. And then you have production plants of food. And they are pretty efficient. You know why? Because CPGs, they are efficient, they are educated, they know what they're doing. I'm not saying that CPGs or FMCGs, they don't have waste. I'm just saying that they are more efficient. And then I looked at the retail businesses. I knew the retail business from before, from Sylvie Industries, and also slightly from Weisberger. And I realized that we have some connections to retailers. Let's look for some solutions for them. And then, I'm the one who cooks in my house. My wife is not into cooking, and I love doing that. So I am pledging my time during weekends, at least 6 hours, Friday, Saturday, to cook and to host the whole family when I'm there. And I realized there is an opportunity maybe with dynamic pricing. So I literally remember the spot where I stood in the specific supermarket, not far away from my house. And I said, what if we could harness the power of dynamic pricing? At the time, I didn't say markdown optimization. The power of dynamic pricing. So Josh and Oded will enter this supermarket and we won't necessarily pay the same price for a Chobani that expires in 2 days and 6 days. But you cannot go with linear pricing. You cannot apply pricing by date. The retailer will be bleeding money. It doesn't make sense at all. So there was like aha moment, but I waited a little bit and I checked, and it was the time that I joined forces with Ben and Yossi, my initial co-founders. Yossi is still, of course, in the company, is the CTO. Ben cashed out. We cashed him out, but he's a good friend. And we started to develop some presentations and some critical thinking because maybe your idea is just, you know, not good or not good enough. And then, August 2016, my wife, myself, and our three kids, we had a trip for 2 weeks in Norway. We visited the largest glacier in the Nordics, Briksdale. I took a photo and then I realized it was here. It was sitting in the back of my mind that I have this photo from 1979. I started to look at my Dropbox albums and I saw the exact photo, me, my brother, my sister, my parents, standing in the same place. But guess what? We are standing on the glacier. And in 2016, we were standing and the glacier was like half kilometer behind us. And they have signs include like the retreat of the glacier. So we went outside. I called our lawyer and I told him, listen, establish the company. We will figure out later what to do. Are you sure? Yes, yes, we are sure. We will figure out. Just establish the company, call it Wasteless, and this is it. And the game was afoot, as we say. Okay, we started with a clue about what we are going to do.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. Thinking about that moment. So you have that experience, you're on a glacier, and you reflect back on, wow, I was actually here and it was different, you know, in 1979. I'm experiencing viscerally the change, right? What's interesting, just think about that timing, 2016, 2017, you're having these observations, these realizations, and it's leading you to food waste. Because I think it was also around that time, for me, when I became aware of the issue of food waste, how it relates to climate change. Basically, we create all this food, it's carbon, it's gone. Never mind all the social issues, just the waste, landfills, you name it. Project Drawdown came out around that time and highlighted, right around that time, right, and highlighted food waste as it was somewhere in there.
218, Paul
Yeah,
Oppen wrote it,
2018, right?
yes.
Okay. In that same window, there was suddenly this more global awareness of, whoa, food waste is a big problem in the context of climate change, where virtually no one had that awareness a decade before you had your kind of aha. And so you think about the timing for you of now stepping into Wasteless, and you're trying to figure it out. But at least the world is waking up a little bit to this idea, and you're starting to think through what is it we're going to make, and what is it we're going to sell, and who's going to buy our solution. So talk us through how this evolved.
We started this product as a full dynamic pricing, and then the first question we ask is how will consumer know about the dual pricing? So ideally we should have like two prices on electronic shelf label. Why? Because we saw that there are electronic shelf labels. We didn't estimate the cost. We knew the cost actually. It was like $8 per unit. And we realized, okay, this is not very common in Israel, but in Europe they have electronic shelf labels. My co-founder actually moved here for 3 months. We knew that it is too early for America, 2017. We knew that the market is mature in Holland and Spain and France for sure. Some strict laws to ban food waste. And we realized that there is opportunity there. Also, there were electronic shelf labels, and we will project two prices on electronic shelf label. One price is the catalog price, and the other price will be the reduced price only for the nearly expired batch and only if needed. So the key was always like that. You are the retailer. We will tell you what to discount, when to discount, and by how much. Our goal is not to discount. Our goal is to discount the right amount in the right time in order for the goods on the shelves to be sold. But we started with that and we realized that we need to develop some hardware because how can you know what was picked up and whatever. For 1 year, we developed hardware and RFID, and it was like heavy hardware project, fully patented. And then Carrefour Global, they hosted us And the head of innovation, he actually took one RFID sticker, he did like that, and he said, Oded, this will kill your company.
So you're holding up a sticker on your finger. Okay, so why will that
Yes.
kill the company?
By the way, he was perfectly right. He said, listen, the cost of this is what? Like 4 cents per sticker. You have to stick all the items. Remember, early 2017, it was totally not realistic. We went back to Israel after this event and we realized that we are going to somehow turn the company to software company with no hardware at all. The most critical advices that I can give younger entrepreneur is to find the product market fit at the earliest possible. And if you feel you're too early to the market, like really too early, 10 years early, just skip it. Don't do it. Or raise more money. The other way around is to say, if you have now an idea with quantum computing that can become mature in 15 years, prepare money and good investors. But MVP is not necessarily the product market fit. The product market fit, you figure it out slightly later at scale. So what we did, we really explored the market. We approached some retailers in Israel only to realize that this is not doable in Israel at all. You spend some time in Israel, so you know that we have frozen, we have bulk, a lot of bulk, like, okay, I want this steak. Would you mind cutting it for me? Okay. So that's not useful. And then also there are returns. So if you are a retailer in Israel and you weren't able to sell your produce, you can and you will send it back to the manufacturer, which is illegal in many countries. So Israel was not a fit, and we realized immediately that we have to jump over the pond to France or Spain because they both had some legislation around food waste. France was the first one, Spain was the second one. We love Spain. It's not a big secret. We started there. India with a premature product, but very good results. And then what we did, we took those results to the so-called, at least, most sustainable country in the world, which is Holland, the Netherlands. And we found there this guy will become like a friend of Wasteless, investor of Wasteless, invested few times, very active on the team. That's Ralph de Vries. And we really cherish his contribution to the company until today. So he's running with us, invested multiple times, and he is initially a meat manufacturer. So I met the guy and I opened the deck, and on the third slide, the third, he turned down the lid and he said, okay, I'm in. You don't have to convince me. I understand the problem. I know the problem. Huge food waste. And then we joined forces and we started to raise some money in the Netherlands. Slingshot Ventures, Dutch VC joined around, some other VCs in the US. And that was the initial story. That was how we really brought it from ideation to just before scale. So initial scale.
Awesome. We have the journey. You see what's happening in Israel. It doesn't feel quite right to find that product market fit. Explore Spain, explore France, countries that are far more along in terms of awareness of policy environment or regulatory environment that says this has to fit here. Let's go to the Netherlands. It's the most sustainable, forward-looking country in Europe, one of them in the world. You find investors, you find people in the industry, they get it, and you say, let's go. For supermarkets, grocery stores globally, how big a problem is waste from a percentage, from a cost? Like, how do we think about the problem that you're stepping in to solve for your customer?
Let me demonstrate it without names. There is a large chain, worldwide chain, that is selling $70 billion. The numbers, by the way, are public. And I met, the title is Responsible for Sustainability, which is a European title. This guy claimed that 1.7 billion euros just go to waste. So you're looking at $70 billion that are annual sales. $1.7 billion annual food waste, and then 1.4 is just expiration date waste. And that's exactly what we do, because we are at Wasteless, we are covering, at least the initial offering is that we are covering everything that is fresh and as a barcode. Now, this is how we started. Now we are also covering dry food and non-food and center stores because we were asked by American retailers to do that, so we are doing that. But when you look at fresh, 1.4 out of $70 billion. So the numbers, they are huge. You can grasp the amount of food that is being wasted.
So that expiration day waste is saying that this fresh food, the bananas, whatever, haven't sold. We're now getting to the last day of
Last
the
day.
expiration date,
Mhm.
and they don't sell. They got to take them off the shelf. It's waste.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
part of Wasteless value proposition is a retailer has some markdown strategy at some point or some plan. Now, maybe it's not a great plan, but at some point, maybe they're going to say, oh, we should knock down the price on this yogurt or something because we're really close.
That's correct. That's
Right.
correct.
As I was preparing to talk to you and I was thinking about Wasteless, and I really want to understand pricing model and the AI
Okay.
and the engine, but I was thinking about, you tell me if this is similar. We had a company on the show called Brainbox AI. They're working in buildings for HVAC systems. They'll say, we can use AI so that we know who's going to be in this space 6 hours from now. 96% we know is going to be in this space 6 hours from now. Instead of waiting 6 hours and then cranking the heat up or cranking it down, which is going to be really expensive, we will gradually either increase the heat or get to a certain point, and it will be far more efficient, far more economic. And I know you have a very different thing, but that's my mental frame where I'm thinking like,
That's
this doesn't
very
have to happen
smart.
all. Okay. So,
What you mentioned is very smart, and basically, I don't know the company, but according to what you're saying now, for sure they're saving energy by avoiding in-rush currents.
just the
Okay,
spike
yeah.
at the end.
Let me tell you how it works in the retail before and after wastes. You are the retailer and you have to sort out completely your backend. Backend meaning production planning. Wait, before production planning, you have a supply chain optimization, which will include replenishment optimization and production planning, because I'm referring now to the States, and in the United States, the retailers, they tend to produce in store. So that's the backend. And you do your best to optimize the supply chain. But guess what? At the end of the day, no matter what you'll do, you will find yourself with surplus food or with out of stock. Now, out of stock, that's another problem. We are not going to touch it. I can talk about it for hours. But let's say you don't have out of stock, you just have surplus food. So with your current practice, you are the American retailer, you will wait. Last day, you knock the price down by 40% or so, maybe 50%, 60%. So what we are saying is, please don't wait to the last moment. We are looking at the shelf. We know your assortment because we got the catalog files. We know quantities. I will get to that in a moment. And then we say, okay, this sirloin steak that is going to be expired, today is the 20th, let's say on May 25th, is probably not going to be sold. Therefore, you should reduce the price. By how much? I don't know. The system knows for this exact SKU, this exact date, this exact location, because it varies between one location to another, between one SKU to another, and it might be a very small discount, like 2.42%. Who knows? If it works, it works. And then we use combination of reinforcement learning, AutoML, convolutional networks, something like that. It's a mix. Okay, so reward and punishment to simplify the claim. Think about it like an experiment, but an educated experiment. You discount this item that is going to be expired in 5 days because the system concluded that this item should be discounted. Then you look at the outcome. The outcome can be one of two. This item was picked up by a consumer or not. If the item was picked up by a consumer, amazing, you're training the system. If the item was not picked up by a consumer, also amazing. And also you're training the system, but you punish the system. Remember, reward and punishment. Next period markdown will be deeper, steeper, maybe 7.4, maybe 13.5. I don't know what is working for this SKU, for this location, but we are training the system. And eventually what you have is internet of grocery. You're connecting all the dots. And the holy grail here, we know that if you, Josh, you are the consumer and you swipe your loyalty card, ideally in the future, we are able to say what is the price sensitivity for Josh for whatever, chicken thighs. Because we know that for $8.4 per pound, you're not going to buy it, but for $1, you're buying it again and again. So this is basically how we use it. And the goal is not to discount, it's a profit maximization. So what am I selling? We are Wasteless, we are selling money. This is what we do because that's the only way to move the needle if no one wants to pay the green premium. You and I, we are consumers. The retailers, they have 1 to 3% profits at the end of the process. They don't want to pay the green premium. But guess what? The green premium is there. It's a value locked on your shelves as a retailer. And we can actually extract this value and put it back in your bottom line. To give you some numbers, 200 stores, chain, $18.2 million net were added to the bottom line of the meat department. That's a lot of money. And 2.2 million pounds of meat waste were prevented. That's the impact of Wasteless. It's a huge impact. And the ROI is proven, and the ROI is from the first day. So we are making damn sure, that you are always, again, you are the retailer, you are always cash flow positive from the first week.
Wow. So let me ask you this. There's the concept of dynamic pricing, the concept that I may fluctuate my pricing, and I might do that a lot as a retailer to optimize the pricing for a sale, but that can lead to higher and higher prices as I'm trying to optimize. It could. And then there's the concept of dynamic markdowns, which is what you've written about. The concept being, this is about profit maximization, throughput. We're trying to move all the inventory. The more inventory we can move at the right price, the better. But the constraint is there's a time frame in which this all has to happen or you lose everything, basically.
Yes, that's correct.
So dynamic pricing sometimes has a negative connotation because it can be viewed as, oh, you're going to charge consumers more. Maybe yes, maybe no. But dynamic markdowns, which is what you talk about, is saying, hey, this is the world as it exists today. You are going to lose your entire opportunity unless you figure out the right pricing at the right moment. And there's way too many variables for any human to know. So we are going to bring some
Technology.
Machine learning to make the system smart so that the right price is shown at the right time and it becomes extremely efficient.
That's correct. So are you joining our sales team?
Well, let's see. Who knows?
Who knows? Let me react to that. So, dynamic pricing, not dynamic markdown optimization. Dynamic pricing is clearly to exploit the consumers. And you see that when you're booking flight ticket, train ticket, taxi ticket, whatever, dynamic pricing is not possible in retail business. For sure, not in brick and mortar. We are working brick and mortar. We have API for online, but currently we have only physical presence. So now, when you do dynamic markdowns, as you said, you work within boundaries given to you by the retailers. So you have the catalog price, and then you go down. And for this specific item, the FTO, the freedom to operate, means you cannot take the price up for these specific items. And believe me, we checked all over the globe, it's the same. No dynamic pricing, only markdown optimization.
Okay, so now let me ask you this. You come to a grocer. I know you're in America. I know you're with Carrefour in France and Argentina. You're with companies in Poland. You're in Holland. You're in Spain. You're probably elsewhere. That's what I can see online, and it's awesome. You come to a retailer, let's say in America, and you say, look, I have an opportunity for you that's going to solve your problems. Does that retailer say, Oded, thank God, I can't believe you finally showed up. I've been waiting for you. What's the sales process? Do you have to overcome disbelief? Do you have to overcome, it's fine, it's business as usual, we've got some waste, it's in the margin? What are the obstacles to getting that sale done?
I think that most of the entrepreneurs will tell you the same. As entrepreneur, you're a little bit like a preacher. You go and you pitch again and again and again and again. And usually when you sell a solution, there's also a consensus sell. So you sell repeatedly to different people in the room, not the same room, and sometimes the same people again and again and again. Now, when you go back in time, we heard a lot of crazy things, such as, to give you just a few. My food waste is within the normal, okay, within the numbers. And then we heard food waste is cost of doing business. And then we heard this one I love the most. Oh, yeah, but consumers, they will learn the habits of your engine and they will hack the habits of the engine. And then they will come in the evening and they will buy whatever and the supermarket will be empty, which of course cannot be done because in Wasteless, you, the consumer, you are the product. It is very similar to users of social network, Facebook, Instagram, hacking the network. This is impossible. You're one of the factors. So we had a lot of crazy things. But guess what? If you do that long enough and you're persistent and you get the first client and you get the first, let's say, McKinsey or a Capgemini and Deloitte, in our case, Capgemini, Deloitte, the Stock Consulting Group, TSCG, our partners here. If you get them to see the results and believing in you, and we are collaborating with Refed and FMI in America, and we got the Seal of Excellence from Europe. So you are gaining more trust, more trophies, more content. I mean, altogether, it piles up. And now they believe you. And guess what? When they believe you, the competition believes you. And you have competitors, and you have some people that are infringing your patents, whatever the patents are. But listen, it's all good. It takes time. It takes time to sell it. But initially, you are not getting help. You are getting a lot of pushback. And the pushback can be about price or about whatever, IT capacity, which we removed almost completely. And that was the massive leap in Wasteless. We just said, and then another secret to reveal, how can we make that happen with less people? And how can we make sure we get the IT out of the room? Not really out of the room. We respect the IT and we understand that they have their own burden and they have backlog, usually with 150 projects. A project can be moving this point of sale from this wall to this wall, but that's a project, okay? And we need to help them. And that's why we built a slim version of Wasteless, which is able to do almost the same like the full enterprise solution, but exclude IT efforts, which is the key. Let's say you have a commercial director that is fully engaged, but then they go to the IT and the IT, they may and they will say, no capacity. Okay, you can't argue that. So let's help you. Let's get you a system that you don't have capacity. Will you give me 2 days, 3 days, 5? You need to circumvent all your challenges. And as a tech entrepreneur, you will have only challenges. You must fall in love with the problem and not with the solution, because the solution is like one instance, right? And then it goes and you have another problem. So the majority of your life, you're going to spend with problems and not the happy moments of solution found.
I appreciate the way you frame that in your perspective. You fall in love
Optimistic
with the
guy.
problem. Well, you fall in love with the problem, not the solution. You're talking with big companies, big retailers. Every corporation is increasingly stretched. Every department is stretched. You get the buy-in from someone who says, yes, we're going to do this. I want this. We need to get this profit back. This is no longer within the norm or the accepted. We want all of it back. And then you have an IT department that's completely stretched, completely overloaded, and says, we have 150 projects, this can go to the back of the line, or it's just not getting in the line at all. In this instance, you're describing a bottleneck, a
Yeah.
bottleneck was
Or we can do it. Many years ago, Tesco told me we will build it, and then they built like the regular things with some stickers, 50%, 70%, whatever, decision tree. And guess what? The Tesco family invested in Wasteless eventually. So the family, their own money. I'm not saying that we are the most clever. I'm just saying that this is what we do.
I understand. You're trying to say, how do we get market penetration? And you're just bringing up one example. The IT department can be a bottleneck. Let's develop a solution that vastly limits how much the IT department needs to be involved for this
Yeah.
to be implemented.
There is no one size fits all, but the champion usually is a commercial director or a category manager. So meet category manager, and then you go from there. So you put your solution and it permeates to other departments.
Okay, let me ask you this, because you said that the champion is the commercial director, but you didn't say the champion is the sustainability director.
Never.
And I think that's good, because you need someone probably who has the profit and loss statement, someone who has, I mean, we love
They
the
don't have
sustainability
budget.
people.
They don't have a budget. I love
Right.
them. Listen, I love them. And I tried it again and again and again. I'm Israeli, so you will get the blunt truth in the face. We are running out of land, not in America, but elsewhere. Out of land, out of resources, wars everywhere. We need to save food, period. And we need to be more efficient. We are facing an imminent disaster. I'm telling you, we need at least to tackle food waste and other 50 phenomenons that are bad. But that's for another day.
You're in all these different countries, you're in different cultures, different economic conditions. I'm curious, not so much from you selling to a Tesco or selling to a Carrefour or selling to a different retailer, but from the consumer in that country or shopping in that grocery store. Do you see the consumers across nations, across the globe, has the same view today about food waste and the value of a wasteless being in the stores where they shop? Is it the same?
Very smart question, and the answer will shock you. The consumers are the same everywhere when it comes to that. So the difference that you may experience and may see are mainly due to age. So 50 plus, many of us were just messed up. But when you look downwards, you see that people do care and people do take smarter decisions. And the new generation, what we call millennials, Gen Z, whatever, you name it, but they're smarter. We were underestimating them, but they are smarter and they take better decisions, and they certainly give some extra points or loyalty. Again, you are the retailer, you are gaining now loyalty from a younger consumer because of some sustainability measures that you took, which makes sense. Wasteless. We are three co-founders now. We have Yossi Regev, the CTO, my partner. We have Tomas Pasqualini from Argentina. He's a co-founder in Wasteless, and myself. Now, Tomas and myself, 8 months ago, we climbed Mount Everest. True
You did.
story. Yeah. We said, okay, we need a break. 17 days, we climbed. I took my oldest son, we trained a lot, and we did it. I'm telling you that I can climb Everest back and forth 10 times, and it will still be easier than startup life. Okay? And remember, it was winter. So cold, no food, harsh environment, but still it is easier than startup. And I won't replace it for any regular job in, corporate.
Well, first of all, congratulations. That's
For coming back.
quite a
For
trip.
coming
Yeah,
back.
yeah. For coming back. Secondly, my condolences on continuing to build Wasteless and do the thing that's much harder than having to climb Mount Everest. Where do you go from here? You're in New York currently. You see a big opportunity, therefore, I'm sure, in the United States. Can you just tell me what that opportunity looks like and how you think about the future for Wasteless?
So we work in 3 locations. So my co-founder Yossi Regev is managing his team, the R&D team, and that's in Tel Aviv. Then we have Ralph de Vries managing the European arm. And Thomas and I, well, Thomas is traveling a lot because he has to onboard all the clients, and he's doing a lot. He's working very hard. Thomas and I, we mainly work here. We work with some partners, some of them known and are covered in press. And I told you one of them, the Store Consulting Group, which we appreciate and we love the people. And some other partners are joining as well. So we have troops on ground. We are selling the same thing. We are not going for other industries such as dynamic pricing for apparel. No, we do only that. We do only supermarkets. We sold to some convenience store, but that's not the main business now. And this is it. Down the road, you will see more online when it makes sense. You will see two prices. I personally patented it. It is here to stay, and we changed the industry. Now, the only question is how big can Wasteless get with this solution?
What I'm hearing is similar to when Tesla comes to market with the electric car or other industries, and Tesla says, okay, we have to go educate the market on the electric car. We have to sell, and we have to educate, and we have to convince people that this is what they want. And one day, there will be more competition, but that's a sign of our success because it means we will have succeeded in educating the market, and the market will have grown and become established, and we will still win or dominate. Now they're ebbing and flowing. There's some pushback, but whatever.
Maybe
but
it will be John DeLorean eventually.
Yeah, maybe
John
DeLorean comes back. Who knows?
Yeah.
But for Wasteless, right, it's the same, right? You're like, we're ahead of the time. We not only do we have to sell, we have to educate on the solution, and now it's like we're looking for a Wasteless-like product. It's almost like you're the Kleenex in the industry that says we want a Wasteless-like thing. It's a marker, a milestone of how much you've succeeded, that the industry now accepts that this is something that the industry wants to do, right? Because Wasteless has pioneered the way. That's
9 years, 9 years since the start of exploration, and let's say 8 years pushing and pushing and pushing. But entrepreneurship, that's hard. And if you don't like it, or actually I will use another word, love. If you don't love it, just don't do it. Passion cannot be faked. Well, maybe some people can do it. I can't do it.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us and walking us through your journey.
Just so as we build technologies that move humanity forward, we must not forget the hostages that are still trapped, right, in terror tunnels. And I think that as human beings, we carry a moral duty to bring each and every one of them home. Okay, I'm not sure that you're going to post it, but if you can.
I know it's on the mind of you, of every Israeli all over the world, and I appreciate you bringing it up. So,
Yeah.